Most of my clients have a lot of the same questions regarding the standard sales contract, which the offers are written on. This contract is known as the Residential Purchase Agreement, or RPA for short. I decided to put together this short video to explain the different sections of the purchase agreement to my clients. So please take a few minutes and watch the video. Hopefully it will answer most of your questions, so when we talk about the offers you are receiving, you'll be one step ahead of the game. Of course, I'm always available to answer more questions, but this will cover the basics for you. Let's start with paragraph 1. Obviously, the most important part here is the purchase price and the timing for the close of escrow. Usually, the contract will specify the number of days after acceptance of the offer that the escrow will close. An acceptance of an offer occurs after a three-way exchange. The first leg is where the buyer makes the offer. The second leg is where the seller accepts the offer and signs the agreement. That, however, is still not a binding contract. In order for the contract to be complete, the seller must send the contract back to the buyer, and the buyer must actually receive it. As soon as the buyer is in receipt of the signed contract, it is a binding agreement. Should the seller decide to make a counteroffer, then that counteroffer becomes the first leg, which the buyer would then have to sign, and the seller would then have to receive back to form the three legs of the complete contract. Note, the third leg does not require signatures, simply the receipt of the documents signed by both parties. When the three legs are complete, that is the day of acceptance, and that will become day 0 in the timeline for the whole contract. Be aware that you will have to be completely moved out of the house at least one day before the close of escrow. The house will actually become the property of the buyer on the day escrow closes, so you can no longer stay there unless we have a contractual agreement for you to hold over past the close of escrow. In paragraph 3A, we talk about the initial deposit. I'll take a look at that to make sure it is adequate so the buyer has some skin in the game. We then go down and see the loan they are getting and the balance of the cash they are bringing to the table. The next page talks about the loan and appraisal contingencies. Each contract is subject to 3 contingencies the buyer has automatically. First, they have the right to do physical inspections and approve the condition of the property. The standard time for that is 17 days. Second, the buyer will have an appraisal done, and if the appraisal comes in lower than the agreed upon sales price, the buyer may either back out or renegotiate the price of the house with the seller. Standard time for that is also 17 days. The final contingency is the loan final approval contingency, which is 21 days. This means that although the buyer may have a pre-approval letter when we start, if for some reason they cannot get their final loan approval, then they don't have to proceed with the deal. The buyer would receive a full refund of their deposit, and they can back out anywhere along the line during these contingencies. All of these time periods are calendar days starting from the day of acceptance, which we defined earlier. Most people are worried about what the buyers are going to ask for when they do their physical inspections and submit a repair request to the seller. First, you need to be aware that in paragraph 11 it specifies that the property is sold in an as-is and present physical condition. That means the seller never has to fix anything. However, since the buyer can walk away from the deal if they do want repairs, we usually have to make some sort of compromise with the buyer to keep them from walking away. Again, it's not required, but it is common sense. I'll walk you through any request for repairs and help you determine which requests are reasonable and which seem unreasonable or unneeded. We can also review the costs for those repairs, as I am familiar with that. Then we can prepare a response to their request, outlining exactly what we will do and what we won't do. Oftentimes people just give the buyer a dollar amount for credit in lieu of fixing anything, and the buyer's happy. It's a case-by-case analysis that I'll help you with. Be aware that all contingencies must be removed actively in writing by the buyer. It will be my job to make sure they follow the timeline, but these contingencies do not expire passively. But when all 3 contingencies have been removed, the buyer's initial deposit becomes non-refundable to them, and should they not complete the deal for any reason at that point, you get to keep the deposit. In paragraph 7A of the RPA, we get down to the allocation of other costs. While these costs are all negotiable, unless you have multiple offers in the wings, the seller is usually going to pay for these standard items. The first one is the natural hazard zone disclosure report. That runs about $100 and is generated during the escrow. The second one is the termite report that the seller will obtain. We work with a pest control company that will do this for free instead of the normal $75 to $100 charged by most companies. Later on down in paragraph 7, they will also normally request that the seller provide a Section 1 clearance, which means that the seller will treat any active infestation and make any repairs to the structure's wood that has been damaged by the infestation. This again is a common seller expense that buyers expect, and it is reasonable for the buyer to expect a termite-free house. Next, we have escrow and title fees. Normally, the buyer and seller split the escrow fee that the escrow company charges for processing the transaction, and the seller pays for the owner's title insurance policy. That policy covers the buyer for any problems with the title later on. While it does in fact cover the buyer, the seller pays for it to ensure he is passing a clean title along to the buyer. There could be liens or judgments that could come back and haunt the buyer later, and this insurance covers it. There are a few miscellaneous fees like county transfer tax fees and any HOA fees. Seller pays these as well. They are all included in the 0.75% expense amount we discussed that escrow cost would add up to when selling a home. The final expense is usually the home warranty. Buyers will always ask for a home warranty to cover the major systems of the house during the first year. While it may seem that the seller should not pay for this, we want to buy it because it will be our defense when they ask for a new furnace or a new water heater just because those items are old. The old furnace and water heater probably work fine, and in case they do go bad, the home warranty will pay for replacement. So we will not usually agree to pay for new ones when they make those kinds of requests, citing the fact that we're buying them a home warranty to cover their concerns. The buyer can even renew the home warranty year after year if they are worried, and the home warranty covers a whole host of other small problems like plumbing issues, electrical issues, etc. I even use home warranties on about a dozen rental homes I own and renew them every year. The last paragraph to check is paragraph 8B. It refers to items included in the sale. Most buyers will check all 3 boxes, claiming they want all stoves, all refrigerators, and all washers and dryers. Take a look at that to see what they are asking for and what you're willing to give them, because we will have to counter out anything you want to keep if they check the box for that item. That pretty much covers the main points of the residential purchase agreement. Look yours over in those areas and let me know when you're ready to talk about it, or give me a call. Talk to you then.